Good afternoon, class. Okay, can you hear me, class? Okay, great. Okay, so let's start our lesson today. All right. So okay. Last week we have tried one simulation examples, and it is the most simple case of a queuing system where we only have one queue, one server. Okay, we call it single channel queuing system. And in that example, I have demonstrated to you how we simulate random event like the arrival of the customer or like the service time of the server. They are all random. We use the technique of random number to generate the probability distribution that we want. Okay, do you recall that one? Okay, so for example, we have a probability distribution of the inter-arrival time of the customer like this. Okay, this is one type of probability distribution. This is a uniform distribution. Okay. And then we would use a random digit, which are also corresponding to this probability. And then we would use a simulation table, right, where we simulate different arrival time and service time for every customer, and then we will compute the waiting time for each customer in the system of each customer, okay, and the idle time of the server. So we collect the statistics of 20 customers and then conclude about the average waiting time of these 20 customers. We assume that these 20 customers is a sufficient sampling for our study. Okay, so you can try similarly for a little bit more complicated problem, like where we have two servers queuing system. Like this example, we have a drive-in restaurant where car hubs take orders and bring food to the car. We have two car hubs here, uh, one named Able and the other one named Baker. So again, we also have the random inter-arrival time of the car, okay. And we also have the random service time of Able and Baker. So in order to do the simulation of this one, you also have to simulate the inter-arrival time and the service time of each server. So you look at in the next slide, we have the information of the inter-arrival time of the car and the service distribution of Able, and so let's say if you still remember our technique last time. Okay, so okay, let's look at the inter-arrival time of the car in table 2.11. Okay, look at this table. These are the probability distribution of the interarrival time. We have the interarrival time vary from 1 to 4 minutes. Okay. And the probability vary from 25%, 40%, 20%, and 15%. If you sum up all of these cases, you will have 100%. So someone can tell me how I use the random digit assignment to simulate this probability distribution. Okay. Anyone can suggest for me the random digit assignment in this table? Anyone? Okay. Shall I invite someone? Anyone want to volunteer? Okay, how about Trinh? Are you there? Kirtan, are you there? Hello, is there anyone there?
Teacher, can I answer this?
Sure, please.
I think you can choose randomly from 1 to 100. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if the time between arrival is 1 minute, the random digit assignment can be from 1 to 25.
All right, 1 to 25. And next one?
Uh, the
Next.
next one is from 26 to 65.
Mm-hmm. 26 to 65. Right.
Yes.
Okay, you can go to the end.
What?
And the next one should be from
66 to 25, 85.
85. Okay.
And the last one is
And,
from 86 to 100.
okay, thanks a lot, Trang. Okay, you are right. Okay, so you get the point of our previous lesson. Okay, so uh, from let's say from 1 to 25, from 1 to 25, we have 25 numbers. So the probability to get any of these 25 number out of 100 number from 0 to 99 would be 25%. Okay, and similarly for the next one, so we can look at the cumulative probability here for the last number in the range. All right, so thanks, Frank. It's okay then. Okay, so we do similarly like that for the surface distribution of able in Becker. Now, because we have two surfaces, so we also need to think of the rules here. So in our simulation table, we use the rule that able you get the customer first if both two servers are idle. It is because in our data, you see that able is a little bit faster than Baker. So we assume that if both of them are free, then the customer will go to able. Okay. But if both of them are busy, Then the customer will begin the service with whoever finish first, whoever is free first. All right. If there's only one server free, then there's no choice. The customer will go to the free one. So that will be our rule. So our simulation table will look like this one. We will have a column where we generate ready for the inter arrival time, and then we will see what is the arrival time there corresponding with that random digit. We will have the random digits generated for the service time. Okay, and is the service time corresponding to that random digit. Okay, so the performance output we have to monitor in this is the service time. I mean, like we want to see at the end how busy is able and how busy is Baker. So we will monitor the service time of able and Baker. And at the end, we will take the average. Sorry, at the end, we will take the total service time of able and the total service time of Baker. And we also want to look at the waiting time of the customer. We need to calculate the waiting time, okay, for each customer. Okay, so this is our output performance. The last column, the time in queue of each customer. Okay, now we not go into this. All right, you can totally do this one with like, similarly like our previous example, but you can do it faster by using Excel. So you can try this one in Excel, and the next few slides give a very detailed instruction. Here is that in Excel you can use the function random number, this function, to generate random digit. Okay, and the other rest is just a very simple computation. You only need to do to set the function, the computation for the first and the second row, and then you can just drag, copy and paste in Excel. Is very fast. And then try to answer the question that we have here. Okay. Understand is that in the previous example, we do the simulation for 20 customers and then we stop. Another way to decide when we stop the simulation is based on the time. Okay, you can decide you stop the simulation for after how many hours of the service, for example. So in this case, in Excel, you will do the simulation for about 60 minutes. So you stop the simulation after 60 minutes. It means that you need to have a column that monitor the simulation time, this column. For example, the first customer arrived. All right, let's say we have a simulation clock and it will be 0. Okay. So the next customer arrived 2 minutes after the first customer, then our simulation clock will show 2. Okay. The next customer, the third customer arrived 4 minutes after the second customer. So in our simulation clock, it would be 6 minutes. So we will stop when the simulation clocks correct around 60 minutes. We stop the simulation. And we will evaluate the service of breaker enable and the waiting time of the customer for these 60 minutes or 1 hour of operation. Alright, so you can try this home. Now we go to the second example. with the inventory system. Have you learned inventory management in any course before? Have you ever learned about different inventory policy in any course before? Like how many type of ways, how many ways you can manage uh, our inventory? Yeah, in which course? Do you still remember in which course you learn about the inventory policy? Uh, okay, so still thinking inventory management course. Oh, all right. So you learn inventory management course is deeper. Uh, and I think you also learned that case that you didn't take the inventory management course. You also learn the basic of it in production management course, right? Is it? Because in production management, we also have to look at the inventory. Okay. So uh, what happened in inventory management? What is our concern in inventory management? We have to monitor our inventory, right? And make sure that we always have enough stock to sell to the customer, right? That is our objective, right? So there are different inventory policy to achieve that objective with minimize costs. So the pictures in this slide give us a very simple illustration of how an inventory system work. Right? So okay, so let's say uh, we have to manage our inventory in our store, so we have to monitor our inventory level. So when the inventory level drop to certain level, then we have to make order. Okay. So basically, we have to monitor our inventory. So there are two ways to monitor our inventory. We can monitor our inventory continuously somehow. All right. So if you have a management information system like SAP, like you can check your inventory anytime, right? But if not, then you can choose like after a certain period, then you go and check your inventory. So maybe after 1 day or after 1 week, 2 weeks, and so on. So you have to design a review period. All right. So let's call that review period N. Okay. After N days, we will look at our inventory level. Now, depends on our inventory level. When we look at that, then we decide whether we should place an order to our supplier or not. So so again, it is also have different. So in this example, we assume that we will place an order that to the maximum of our store, right, to save money, because we know that every time we place an order, then we have to suffer some cost of transportation, for example. Or like we want to save money if we place a large order in bulk order. So we will order to the maximum that we can store. And that's maximum level I call M. Okay, we will decide. So our policy here will be what is an M and an N that's suitable, or what is the optimal M and N for us. Okay, so let's look at this picture. We have the x-axis is the time level. Let's say we start with our inventory somewhere here, and then it reduces with time. It reduce. Why it's reducing here? Because we are selling. Okay, let's say we are able to sell. There's some customer order, so we sell, and so our inventory level drops. Okay, so until the day our review day, we check the order our inventory to level M. Okay, because this is the right, we place in other quantity that made our inventory level increase to M. Anyone can see our assumption here? Is there any assumption here when we plot like this? I place another, and immediately my inventory level increase. So when I plot like this one, do I any assumption here? I place another, and the inventory level increase immediately. Anvik, Anvik, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we are here. Okay, thanks, Vic. Do you agree with the answer? Okay, we have an answer here from Trang. She said that the assumption is lead time equal to 0. Okay, that's right. Usually when we place an order, we have to wait a certain time to receive the stock, right? So by right, the figure should be look like this. Our inventory drop, okay? And when we are in view, and we place an order here, okay? So while we still waiting for the supplier, then the inventory will continue to drop if we receive the customer order. So it will continue to drop, right? And then increase after the lead time. So by right, we should have the lead time here. So from here to here would be lead time. Lead time. But in this figure, we assume that the lead time is 0. So when we place an order, the inventory level increase immediately. Okay, so that is the figure we are talking about. So, all right, we continue from this. We receive the stock, and it's raised up to M. And after that, our inventory level reduce because of the customer demand. Okay, so now we put a straight line like this one. The inventory level reduce in a constant rate like this one. So here again, we assume that the customer demand rate is constant. So we have a straight line like this one. If it's not constant, it's really stochastic, then we should have something up and down like this. Okay? All right. So and then it's time to review and place orders. So inventory increase again. Now, even though we assume that the customer demand rate is constant in each period, but it will vary in different period. Okay, that's our assumption. So let's say in the next period, there are more customer demand. So that's why the inventory level drop very fast. You see the slope of this one is steeper than the others, right? The next period, right, the customer demand is lower. But in the second period here, we have very high customer demand, so inventory level drop very fast. Okay, all right. So what happened at this point? Anyone? What happened at this point? At the review period, at the second review period, what happened at this point? Stockpile. That's right, Phương. Stockpile means what? We have customer demand, but we don't have stock to sell, right? All right, and it happened before we review our inventory level. Okay, so it's happened somewhere here. So we are so unlucky, and so we have to the customer to review and realize our stock out situation. Okay, and then we will place an order that compensate for our stock out a few days ago. All right. Okay. In order to avoid situation, what can we do? How to avoid stock out? We should have safety stock. Okay, so safety stock means we will raise up, we will have this one, something like this one, and this one we call safety stock. Okay, so so we also have to calculate this safety stock, right, to avoid it over zero. That's right. Okay, that's one way have safety stock. Okay, what else? What else can we do? So let's say if we talk about stock, we need to have safety stock, or we need to keep, like, say it very simple, we need to keep more stock. All right, higher stock to assure that in the worst case we still have something to sell. All right, Phương suggests that we need to have proper forecast. Okay, forecast will help us to calculate the stock we need, like safety stock, for example. Right. Okay, reduce review time. That's right. Okay, so if we look at the time, look at our policy here. We have two factors. We have two dimensions here. One is the stock M. Okay, we can do something with the stock by stocking more, by calculate the safety stock, and we also look at the time factor, the review. All right, so if stock out happen quite frequently, then we have to reduce our review time. Okay, that's right. So have steady stock or keep more stock, and reduce review time can help us to avoid stock out situation. But what is the cost associated with keeping more stock or review more frequently and place order more frequently? What are the costs we need to spend in inventory management? What is the cause? Holding cost. Right, way. Right, we have holding cost. So the holding cost here are made in the form that we have to pay money for the storage, keeping the stock. Okay, like we need to have a big store that costs us money, and we need to spend money for electricity, people to manage more stock. That's also related to holding costs. Okay, and we also can think of the cost related to opportunity cost, like if we calculate wrongly and we spend too much money in buying inventory and it's not necessary, then actually we can use the extra money to invest in other things. Okay, instead of buying a lot and keeping there, not necessary. Okay, so holding cost is one. What are other costs we also need to spend in inventory management? Like we review very frequently and we place order frequently. Then what are the costs associated with that? Ordering costs, right? As order more frequently, then perhaps you have to pay for living costs. And yes, costs. Okay, so in a big warehouse, like reviewing, unless you have an SAP system, like every time you review, uh, you it takes a lot of time and doing that. Okay. So you're right. Time and so on. Okay. So we have a problem here. Is to find personal efficiency. What is M and N here in the context that our demand is random and our lead time is random. Right, demand is random and lead time is random. If it is fixed or if we treat it as average, then it's very simple. Okay, so we can to answer these questions, but simulation doesn't give us the optimum solution. It can to see can help us to simulate the randomness of the demand and the lead time, but doesn't give us the optimum M and N. So again, we have to try with some figure in our mind and see how it works. All right. So let's say
Teacher, I cannot see your slide and also you already mute your mic.
Hi, Miss. Can you unmute your mic?
Okay, there's just a wrong connection. I'm fixing it. Hello, can you hear me now? Can you see the screen? Can you see the screen again? Can you see the slide? Just reconnect it. Okay, still not see the screen. No, you cannot see the screen. Okay, give me a second. I'm fixing it. Okay, here we are. All right, everything's all right. Okay, so okay, let's continue. We will try the simulation with the maximum inventory level set at 11 and the review period is at 5 days. Okay, we'll try this suggestion first. Okay, and this to the demand and the lead time. Okay, like from our historical data, we have the demand vary from 0 to 4 units every day. So it means that there's a day we receive no order from customer is 0, and the maximum order we receive is 4 units per day. Okay, and these are the probability we record, like 10% of the cases, like we have no demand, we receive no order. 25% of the days, like 25 days out of 100 days, we receive an order 1 unit. Okay, and so on. And these are the cumulative probability. Okay. So again, we can use our random digit assignment technique for this probability distribution. Like we use from 1 to 10 for demand 0, and let's say 11 to 35 for demand 1, 36 to 70 for demand 2, and so on. Okay. Now for the lead time, it is random, and it's vary from 1 to 3 days. Some day we place an order, and one day after we receive the stock. Some days we have to wait after 3 days. Okay, and this is the probability, and we use the same random digit assignment for this. Okay, now let's look at our simulation table. Alright, so our review period is 5 days, and we will conduct our simulation in this example for 5 cycles. So each cycle is 5 days. And we will evaluate our inventory policy by looking at the total inventory, the total ending inventory the average should be the average. The average inventory that we have in our system. Okay. So we can translate that inventory into money. Okay, and then we evaluate whether that one is too high or too low. And we also can look at, first one we look at the inventory, and the second one we may evaluate uh, a policy by looking at the shortage occurrence. So we will monitor with this policy and equal to 11 and equal to 5. Is there any shortage occur? Okay, so there are different ways to evaluate an inventory policy. Let's say we will look at these two factors. So let's try uh, the first cycle. All right. So we need to know the demand by generate random digit for demand, and then we know the demand. So day one, we start with day one. Let's say our beginning inventory is 3 units. Okay, and our demand on day one is random. We get number 1 unit. So at the end of the day, 3 - 1 is 2 units. Okay, and there's no shortage. All right, customer only order one. We have 3, so no shortage. The shortage quantity is 0. Okay, it's not the day we place an order, so the quantity isn't applicable here. Okay, and this one return here. But let's say the cycle before that, the cycle before cycle number 1, we already placed an order to the supplier, and we are waiting for that order arrive. So let's assume that uh, there's only 1 day more that we will receive our order. So we will have a column to the orders like this column. Okay. Now day 2. On day 2, our beginning inventory would be the ending inventory of day 1. So ending inventory of day 1 is 2. It will be our beginning inventory of day 2. And in day 2, our random demand is also 1 unit. Okay, we generate random digits 35, and 35 still are corresponding to 1 unit. Yeah. So would be 2 - 1 is 1. Again, no shortage occur, and so on. Okay. Now day 3. Day 3, our inventory, right? Our ending inventory of day 2 is 1, but our beginning inventory in day 3 is 9. What happened here, everyone? Why we have 9 units on day 3? Why suddenly increase? Why suddenly increase here? Oh, we receive the stock from the supplier, right? Look at this column. Okay, so it's time for us to receive the stock from the supplier. So we receive the stock from on day 3, and it is 8 units. Assume that we place an order of 8 units in cycle before cycle 1. Okay, and it's raised up our stock from 1 to 9. Okay, and the demand on day 3 is 2 units. So the ending inventory on day 3 is 9 - 2 is 7. No shortage occur. Okay, we continue to do like that. Let's say we look at day 5. Day 5, our beginning inventory is 4. demand on that day is 2, so our index is 2. Okay, now day 5 is also our review day. And so we will place an order here. And the order quantity will depend on our inventory level on day 5. Our inventory level on day 5 is 2. So how many units we should order to the supplier? We have 2 units, and so how many more we should order? What is our policy? Our policy is the maximum level. We will keep the maximum level at n equal to 11. Right? We are trying this policy. So it means that we will place an order of 11 minus 2 is 9. Okay, we will place 9 units. We will add in 9 units. Alright, and how long we have to wait? We generate a random digit for lead time. We get number 5 is corresponding to 1 day. Alright, so in this case, we have to wait for 1 day to receive the 9 units. Alright, okay, so we keep doing like that one. Now let's look at cycles for day 2. Let's try this one. Cycle 3 day 2. Okay, now the beginning inventory of day 2 is 0. Okay, the previous day, the ending on day 1 equal to of cycle 3 is 0. Okay, so this is very dangerous. We have no stock. And unfortunately, we received 2 orders on that day. The demand on that day is 2. Okay, so the ending inventory on that day is 0. Okay, so we still have nothing. So ending inventory is 0. And now shortest quantity in this case is because the demand is 2. We have nothing, so shortest is 2. Alright. And meanwhile, we still have waiting our order from the supplier. There's still 1 day more to receive. Okay. The next day 3, our inventory is still 0. We haven't received our order yet. And we still receive another 2 orders. So at the end of the day, our stock is 0. And our stockage quantity increased. 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, and the next day we receive our order from the supplier. Okay, let's see on day 4. On day 4, we receive another and it raised up our unit to 9. Okay, to 9. Alright, and on day 4, we receive 1 order. So we assume that the customer on day 2 and day 3 are willing waiting for us. So we still able to sell to them. So our inventory will reduce by 5 units. Okay, 1 order on day 4 and 2 others on day 2 and 2 others on day 3. So it will reduce by 5 units. So we take 9 minus 5. It would be 4. Okay, and so on. Right, so we doing like that one until we finish the 5th cycle, and we will evaluate our policy. We look at our ending inventory column. Okay, let's look at this column. So you can take the sum of these ending inventory after 5 cycles, and you take the average. Okay, so we have in total 25 days. So you can see what is the average inventory every day you hold. Okay, and then we look at with this inventory, look at the shortage. How many times we uh, have to suffer shortage and the quantity. Right, so it's happened 2 times here. Right, so can we do better than this? We don't know. We cannot give the answer. We have to try. Right, that's the drawback of simulation. So you may, let's say we want to avoid shortage, so you may increase M. If we can, let's say in reality, if you can increase M, then we increase M. Or let's say if you want to uh, reduce the review period, instead of 5 days, we reduce to 4 days, and see is it significantly improved or not. And we can try that. Okay, so that's the way simulation works. Okay. We can try a similar example with the let's say the next one, the newspaper seller problem. Okay, so this is also a common problem of inventory management. Okay, now in this example, instead of uh, looking at the inventory in general, now our product is newspaper. Our inventory is newspaper. Okay, we are selling newspaper. So, what is the characteristic of newspaper? How should we classify this inventory type? Newspaper. That is the characteristic of newspaper, everyone. Short cycle, single period order. Okay. Uh, right now, Fu, can you explain more what do you mean by short cycle? Yeah, Fu, go ahead. Good. Okay, sure. Right, you can type. Okay, meanwhile, I suggest that you should continuous review. Okay, Min An, you also have to explain more. Like, what do you mean by continuous review of newspaper? All right,
Yes,
good.
because paper is will update information up to date, so we need to continuous uh, continuous review. Yeah, I, I guess.
Okay. Um, so you also also point to the characteristic that the I mean like uh, we cannot keep the newspaper for too long, right? So yes, the actually the key problem with the newspaper seller is that uh, it's, it can be outdated very fast. So we can, like usually we cannot like if it is a daily newspaper, like every day we they have a newspaper for every day. And yes, like what you say, we cannot sell it today newspaper on tomorrow. If it is a quickly one, then we also cannot sell it on next week. Okay, so this is a common characteristic of perishable product. Okay, so when we type in here, still up, perishable, perishable. So when you're dealing with inventory management, you have to deal with a very special type of product we call perishable products. So size of the size of the demand, the random demand, okay, the size of the lead time. We also have to dealing with the 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 product lifetime. Okay, so if it is fruit, you cannot keep it for like 1 week or 2 weeks. Or so certain product will have the expiry date. So for the newspaper, if we talk about daily newspaper, it would be the day, the lifetime is day. So we have to look into that factor. Okay, so let's say how do we deal with that problem in this example? Okay, now we will, let's say we are the newspaper seller. So we also have to decide how many newspaper we need to get. All right. Now, because let's assume that it's a daily newspaper, so we have to get a newspaper early in the morning, and we do like that every day. So we fix on the review period. Okay, so we will go and get the newspaper every day to sell to the customer. So now the problem is not the review period, but now we focus on the quantity. How much we should get from the publisher, let's say, okay, or the wholesaler, and then to sell to the customer. Okay, and if we take too much and we cannot sell, then we can only get back a little bit money by with the salvage value. You learn that in engineering economics, right? So like after a long time you don't use uh, your 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 property, then you can sell your property with for a little amount of money. We call that salvage value. Okay, so in this case, we will call it like ve chai. All right, so we will sell our old newspaper for a small salvage value. But let's say if we take too few and there's so many customers want to buy on that day, then we lost the opportunity. Okay, and let's say we can we can compute the profit, right? So depends on the number of newspaper we get, and depends on the number of newspaper we can sell. Then we can totally calculate the revenue from the sales. Okay, we know, let's say we know the cost of one newspaper. We minus the cost of the newspaper, and we look at the profit from excess demand, if there is excess demand. Okay, and if let's say there is little demand, then we can calculate the salvage from sale of the scrap paper. Okay, let's say we have the number for all of these things. Okay, so we play with the simulation and we calculate the profit, right, and see if our decision is wise or not. All right. So this is the data we have for related to the demand. Now the demand is vary for every day, and it also depends on the types of the news of each day. Right. So we have the type of news days here. So the news day may be good, fair, or poor. We have three types with this probability. If the day, that particular day is good, then we look at this column. The demand will be varied, all right, and it follows this probability distribution. Okay, this is when the news day is good. Okay, so like 3%, right? 3%, 3% probability that we can sell the newspaper to 40 customers, right? 5% that we can sell to 50 customers, 15% that we can sell to 60 customers, and so on. So the demand vary from 40 to 100. Okay, if you sum up on this column, you will get 100 here. This is on a good day. Now, if it is a fair news day, this is the probability distribution, right? Demand also varies from 40 to 100, but with different probability distribution. And this is the demand, the probability distribution on the poor day. You look at the distribution and you see that it makes sense here. Let's say when it is a good days, you will see that most of the highest probability for here. So 35% that we will have 80 customers. All right, it's quite high for a good day. Now, if you look at the poor day, the highest probability is here. Okay, 44% that the demand is only 40. This is a poor day. Okay, and let's say the fair day it will be somewhere between. The highest probability we get is 40% that we will have 60 customers somewhere in the middle. Right. Will demand on good days and lower customer demand on poor days. Okay. Again, we also use our random digit assignment to simulate this probability distribution for the demand with different type of news days. Okay. All right. So now we are ready for the simulation table. Okay, so all right, so we need to simulate the type of news day, whether it is a poor or fair or good days, and then corresponding to that, we will generate the demand according to that the type of news day. Okay, and then we will collect, we will compute the revenue for that particular day. All right, and like how much the loss we have to suffer, and the salvage value, and at the end, what is our profit on that day. Okay. Again, simulation doesn't give us an answer how many newspaper we should buy. So we will try with a certain number that come to our mind or into our experience. So let's say we try 70 newspaper. We will decide to buy 70 newspaper and then sell it back. And we will observe our profit for say 20 days. Say 20 days. Alright. So now let's try simulation. Day one, we random a number, we get 94, so that day is a poor day. Okay, and then we get another random number, and we use the table for the poor day, the demand on the poor day, and we get the demand is 60. Okay, so it means that we have 70 newspaper, yes, 70 newspaper, and we can only sell 60 newspaper. So what is the revenue from 60 newspaper that we can sell? Okay, we have the information here. Let's say we have one newspaper cost us how many here? Okay, we have the number here. Okay, so about 5 cents, for one newspaper. So we get the revenue from 60 newspaper is $30. Okay, so there's no excess demand, so this is not applicable. Now, see, we have 10 newspaper, so we can calculate the sandwich from sale of the strap newspaper. So we only get that from we get that 50 cents from the strap, the 10 strap newspaper. Okay, and so we use this function to calculate. We take the revenue minus the cost minus plus the sandwich, we get the profit. So day one we get $7.4 profit. Okay, now let's try one more day. We got day two. We generate a random digit and we get day two is a fair day, and we get another random digit for demand on fair day, and we get the demand on day two is 50 day. Okay, our policy is fixed. We fix with 70 newspaper. So day two we own 70 newspaper, and this time the demand is only 50. Okay, so the revenue from 50 newspaper sold is $25, and the sandwich for 20 newspaper that we cannot sell is $1. So the profit of day two is only $2.9. Okay, we continue to do like that for 20 days, and we get the profits for 20 days. Okay, the sum of the profit after 20 days is about $174.9. Number. Okay, so wow, can we improve from this? And how many newspaper we should get? Again, we don't have the answer. We have to guess and try. So you may increase this one to 80 and try if you can improve the profit after 20 days or not. Or you may reduce it 70 to 60. All right. Depends on like how do you observe the service happens so many times, or the set demand happens so many times, so you will decide intuitively whether you should increase or reduce the number of newspaper. Okay, and then compare the profit. So this is the step when that we say experimentation in simulation. So like later after you have a simulation model and it's a valid one, then you can play experimentation with it. It means that you try different scenario, different solution like 60, 70, 80s, right? And then analyze the result. Okay. All right. So we stop here, class, and after the break, We will continue with the last example, reliability in the factory. Okay, back at now it's 2:30, we will back at 2:45. Okay, see you again at 2:45. Okay, hello class. I'm back. I believe. Hello. Shall we start class? Okay, cool. Alright, so let's continue our lesson. Okay, so our next problem will be the reliability problem. So this is dealing with the reliability of the machine, how we carry out the maintenance of the machine. So you know that the machine performance is also random, kind of random. Okay, so it can fail any day. You can say it, but let's say a job in maintenance, and let's say you do a good monitor its performance. Actually, you can predict like when certain part or when the machine may fail, and then you have predictive planning, predictive maintenance for the machine to prevent the worst case is that when the machine breaks down, so everything totally shut down. So the problem here is the lifetime uh, uh, certain parts in the machine or the performance of the machine is random. Okay, and let's say we have to decide when should we do the maintenance. Here is not like the maintenance in the sense that we wait until the machine breaks down and then we fix it. It's like a firefighter. It's not good, but we need to make a plan and to see when we should replace certain part of the machine. All right, and so it depends on the historical data that we predict, make a plan for that. So in our examples here, we look at bearings used in a certain machine. Let's say it's a milling machine. You know bearing. So in all parts of the machine, you usually have a very complex bearings. So it's like you have two parts fixed together like this one. And if you want them to be very fit together, you need to have certain bearing inside here, right? And it's like there's a collision here, so it wear out very fast. The bearing usually wear out very fast to replace this part. So this is just an example. You can have many similar situations like that, and we have to decide when we need to replace certain part in the machine. Okay. So let's say uh, we look at maintenance plan to replace the bearings. So the current practice is when failed. Service. So repairman come to open up the failed one and replace the new one. And in this particular milling machine, we have three bearings inside. We use three bearings inside. Okay. So these are the informations we have. We have the delay time of the repair person arriving at the milling. Okay, so when we make a call, he doesn't appear immediately, or but it's after some time, and that some time is random. Okay, and why we are so concerned about the time here? It is because it's related to money. When the machine is down, then we suffer certain costs. Okay, we cannot make anything. Right? So we assume that the downtime for the milling machine is estimated at $5 per minute. Okay, and then we call for the repair person. We also need to pay for him, and we have to pay $15 per hour for the repair person. So it takes longer time. The longer time we have to pay for him. Okay. Now, so so we have to wait for him to come. So that's certainly delay time. And now, when he change the bearing, it takes usually 20 minutes in one bearing. Okay. And 30 minutes to change two bearings, and 40 minutes to change three bearings. Okay. Because we have three bearings inside. Okay, so you may wonder why it doesn't. It takes 20 minutes to change one bearing. Why it does take 40 minutes to change two and 60 minutes to change three? Okay, so this is because if we change two bearings or three bearings at the same time, but we only open up the machine once, then it saves us sometimes. Okay, so so that's why the engineer make this proposal. So for the current practice, if one bearing fail, then you call the service person and he come and he replace only one bearing, the one that failed, and the other two is still working. So just let it run. Okay. But the engineer argue is that because the time of the bearing may be more or less the same. So let's say if one bearing failed, then it's very likely that the other two will fail very soon after that. So if we wait until other two fails and if we call for the repairman, and we will have to wait for him again, and then let's say we have to open up the machine again. Let's have to do like that for three bearings at different times. Then it will total 20 minutes multiplied by 3. In total 60 minutes. Okay? Because he has to open up the machine 3 times. Take longer time. And then call him. We have to wait for like 3 times for him to come up. Okay? So it takes a lot of time. So he proposed that whenever one bearing fails, then his proposal just replace all three bearings, even though the other two are still working. We just replace the other two because they may also fail very soon. And by doing like that, we may save time, a lot of time and money, of course. But of course, you may argue that the other two bearings still working, then if you replace the still working one, then you also cost, right? So you replace the still working one with the new one. So you have to pay money to buy the new bearing, unnecessary one. So is it cost efficient or not? compare the new proposal and the old proposal. The problem. So now we have the new solution. Okay. So instead of just try and we will see, then we can do it simulation. Okay. Provided that if we have historical data related to the lifetime of the bearings, provided that we have the historical data of the delay time of the repair person. Okay. At the cost, so that we know, okay, then we see how the randomness of the lifetime, the bearing, and the delay time of the repair person, okay, contribute to the two scenarios, the two proposals here. Okay, and which one is more cost efficient? Okay, so let's try it with simulation. Now, um, uh, let's say this is the historical data we have regarding to the bearing life. Alright, so from our data, we record that the bearing life may vary from 1,000 hours to 1,900 hours. That's very a lot, right? It's almost double. But with different probability, so 10% of the bearings that we observe last only for 1,000 hours. 13% of the bearings we observe in the past can last 1,000 and 1 hour. And so we can see that most of the bearing, like 25% of the bearing can last 1,200 hours. A few of them, like 9%, the bearing log to 1,900 hours. All right. Now, let's look at the delay time of the repairman in the next table. The delay time we record may vary from 5, 10, and 15 minutes with different probabilities. So 60% of the cases we call the repairman and he come after 5 minutes. 30% he come up after 10 minutes. And 10% of the cases he come. Okay, so this and history that we have. Okay, so we will see in our simulation table what we want to look at here. We'll try two proposals. The first one is the current method, and the second one is the new policy. And we will compare by looking at the costs for each method. So the cost is the cost depends on what the number of bearings we have to replace. Okay, the cost will depend on the delay time. And we call the repairman and time it to spend to replace the new bearing. Okay. In the current method, the time for replace one bearing is 20 minutes. It's 3 to 60 minutes. So we look at the time in total and then calculate the cost. Okay, so we need the information related to the number of bearings we have to replace in total and the delay time in total for the first case and the second case. And we need to do simulation for a certain period. You can again you can decide to stop the simulation after how many replacement, or you can stop the simulation after some time. So let's say we want to simulate after for about 21,000 hours. We will observe how many bearings we need to replace and the total time after 21,000 operate with the cost of this is after 21,000 hours of simulation. Okay, so let's try with the current method. Again, remember we need to look at the number of bearings we need to replace and the delay time. So we will monitor the three bearings we have in the machine: bearing number 1, bearing 2, and bearing 3. Okay. Now let's start with bearing number 1. Okay. How long it lasts? So we generate a random digit and it's corresponding to the life of the bearing, 1,400 hours. So it means that after 1,400 hours, it dies. Okay. So, so we have to call the service and we generate another random number for the delay time. Okay, it's number 2, so the delay time is 5 minutes. Okay, so we replace the first bearing after 1,400 hours and it takes us 5 minutes. For waiting for the serviceman. Okay, and of course 20 minutes for replacing the new one. Now, bearing 2, okay, we also use the random digit. So the first bearing number lifetime is 1,500 hours. So after 1,500 hours, so the first bearing die after 1,400 hours. We call it, okay, and doesn't touch on the second bearing or the third bearing. Now, at 1,500 hours, means 100 hours later, the bearing second two, the bearing two fell. So we have to call for the service again for the current method, and he arrived after 15 minutes. Okay, so there's some for bearing number 3 hour is also 1,500, and we call the repairman is also that. Okay. Now, go back to bearing number 1. We already replaced the new one. So the second bearing lasts for 1,000 hours. Okay. I generate random digit, we got this number. And so after 1,000 hours, the second bearing one fell. Now we have to monitor the simulation time here. The first one already one the simulation clock. Okay, so we call the repairman and we got the delay, another delay for. Alright, now similarly with the second bearing lasts for 1,200 hours. Then it fell and call for the repairman. Take him 10 minutes to come and then replace the new one for the so that we have the third bearing. Okay, and so on. So we continue to simulate like this until 500. Okay, right. Sorry, there's a bad connection just now. We can continue. All right. So I'm talking at bearing number one. After we simulated for about 21,000 hours, we see that we have used in total 16 bearings for bearing number one. Okay, 16. Okay. And we also stop the simulation for bearing number around 21 hours. Okay, and see that we also have to use 16 bearings for bearing two. Okay. All right, we stop also around that hours. We stop at 20,000 hours because we see that the lifetime that the bearing always larger than 1,000 hours. So we can stop at 20,000 hours. And for bearing three, we're using 14. We have to replace 14 times. So with this information, we can calculate the cost. Okay. So in total, how many bearings we have to replace in this with this current method? So we can calculate the cost related to replacing of new one. Okay, so 16 bearing 1 plus 16 bearing 2 plus 14 bearing 3. That's the total number of bearings we have to replace. Okay, and then we look at the cost related to the delay time. Okay, so we have the total delay time when changing bearing number 1 on delay time for changing bearing 2 and delay time for changing bearing 3. Okay. This is only the delay time when we have to wait for the serviceman. We also have to calculate the time it takes to replace each bearing. Okay. So in this case, replace each bearing will take us 20 minutes. Okay, and we can into money. Alright, the cost of changing in total 46 bearing, the cost of delay time while we waiting for the serviceman come, the cost of downtime during repair. So if we have to repair 46 bearings, then the delay time would be 46 multiplied by 20 minutes, right? Because we have to open up the machine 46 times, and each time and we have to pay for the repair person. Okay, each bearing takes 20 minutes, so this is the money we have to pay it. They total about $7,000. But we have to spend a lot of time. This is our method. Now, in the new method, whenever one bearing fails, replace all 3 bearings. Okay, and to make it very comparable with the first one, then we will keep the same data related to the lifetime bearing for the first scenario. Okay, so let's in okay, right. Let's say in the first simulation, this is the lifetime of bearing number 1 we get. Like we get 1,400. This is 1,400, 1,000, 1,300. So we will copy this number, okay, for the second one. Okay, and we will copy the same number of life hours of bearing 2 and the same number of life hours of bearing. Okay, we don't we will not generate the random digit to get a new time. We use the exact lifetime of the 3 bearings that we simulate for the current method. Okay, try to make it exactly the same with the first method. All right, so let's look at this scenario. Uh, so bearing number 1 lasts for 1,400 hours. The first bearing 2 lasts for 1,500 hours. The first bearing 3 lasts for 1,500 hours. So which one fell first? Bearing 1 fell first, right? Okay, bearing 1 fell first. So bearing 1 fell first, so we call the serviceman to replace all the 3 bearings. Okay, the first failure occurred at 1,400 hours, and we call for the serviceman, and the delay time is 5 minutes. All right. Now, so we also record the simulation time in this column. Okay. So now, after we replace all the three bearings, the second bearing one lasts for 1,000 hours. The second bearing two lasts for 1,200 hours, and the third bearing three lasts for 1,400 hours. So that fell first after 1,000 running. Okay, so I'm sorry, this one will be our simulation clock. So we look at the accumulated life. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. All right. Sorry. Hmm. Okay. Here we are. All right. So all right, we monitor the simulation time at the accumulated life here. Okay, we look at the simulation time at the accumulated life here. So okay, so we also start around 21 hour here. Okay, and we got um, the delay time in total here is around 125 minutes. Okay, so again we calculate the cost for this case. Cost we have bearings, right? Because it's still working, but we still replace it. So this time we have to change in total 54 bearings. But in the previous case, we only spent 46 bearings. So for this one. But when we calculate the cost of downtime and the cost of repair person, is cost. Okay, so uh, so it's obvious that if we try this second method, we save around $800, right? And the simulation time we run is around 21 hours. 21,000 hours, so it's about 2 years. So it means that we can save this much of money for kids, right? So it's become very convincing before we can apply the new method, right? So again, this is the advantage of the simulation. It helps us to evaluate the solution before we can implement it. All right. So is on the three examples for this lesson, and in summary, um, we have tried very common examples in real life, right, where we encounter with random events like the queuing system or in inventory management. That's our job. Okay, it's very likely that when you go to work, you have to deal with inventory management, and if you work in the factory, reliability is also a common problem. So hopefully, with the example that can give you some motivation for the application of simulation in for the next lessons, right? And also the example you see that we have to determine the input data, the random variables, and how we look at the statistic, the descriptive statistic to analyze the response. Okay, but if you spend more time looking at these examples, you may come up with uh, a few more questions. Okay, so you, for example, let's say you see in all the simulation we have to decide need to simulate. So like in one we stop the 20. In another simulation, we let's say we decide to stop after 21,000 hours. Right. So of course the result we get will be very different. Like if you stop simulation at 20 customer, it will be very different with you stop the simulation at 10 customer or 100 customer. Right. You when we calculate the average, it will be different. Right. So what is the appropriate number here? Right. And the appropriate number that can give us a confidence in the simulation results. Okay, or let's say I show you a technique of using the random number to generate a given probability distribution, and the probability distribution that I give you is quite simple, right? In the form of the table like that. Let's say if you have a more complicated case, you cannot come up with a table like that. So what should we do to simulate that one? So we will learn another lesson to see how we simulate, how we generate random variate of different type of distribution, right? Different from the table that we use in the simulation I give you is common but also simple, and we can use a table, Excel, and calculate it manually. But let's say if we have a more complicated conceptual model, then how should we translate it into simulation? All right, so we will learn along the way how to use the software to translate a more conceptual, a more complicated can save your knowledge into the simulation. All right, so these are some a few questions that you may come up and remember the question. See if you can answer it in the rest of the course. Okay, class. So any questions so far before we stop today? Okay. By the way, all right. I see that many of you have problem in installing Arena by yourself, right? Maybe the drive I send you have too many files and you're a little bit confused. Maybe I'm too great. They give you too much. So um, go to YouTube and type in how to install Rack Arena version 14. And then there's a few good video show you how to install Rack version of Arena version 14. Okay, it is quite simple actually. Uh, if you have any other problem, maybe you can wait until next week. Okay, and we will give you we will show you how to install it in lab, or you can meet the TA, our TA before the lab, right? You can go to school at any time and see the TA to assist you in installing the software. So because of the installation problem, so I will not count like the deadline for this one anymore. But I still encourage you to submit before the lab section. So our class lab section would be next Thursday, right? So I expect you to to submit before next Thursday so that I can have a look at your submission and then know like what is the problem that you meet and then give you a feedback in class. So in time, right? So that's my purpose. Okay, everyone. Any questions or comment or suggestion? Anything? No. Everyone sleeping. All right. If no question, then we stop here. You can drop me an email whenever you like. Okay, class. We stop here. Goodbye.